Happy Friday. Thank you for coming in today. People who just walk in, please sign. There's a sign sheet going on for the public. Thank you for coming to RFQL 1213-407, Administration of CRA. This is a televised and public meeting. My name is Josephine Grosch. I'm here from purchasing. With Patricia Armstrong, we are here to facilitate this meeting. First of all, I would like to have a committee member introduce yourself. Just say your name and your entity or organization where you represent. All right? Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Steve Lindorf. I'm the CRA administrator for the City of Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and I'm here as president of the Florida Redevelopment Association. I'll be a non-voting resource.
William Halliday. I'm the owner of Art House 429 and Art Gallery in Northwood Village.
Thank you.
And I'm Jeff Green. I'm the finance director for the city and also the treasurer of the CRA.
Thank you.
Keith Spina, Glidden Spina and Partners Architects.
Thank you.
I'm Russell Green. I am chairman of the Northwood Pleasant City Community Redevelopment Advisory Board, and I'm a local banker.
Thank you.
Duet Price. I'm a real estate development side. I'm here representing the Urban League of South Florida District Council.
Great. Thank you so much for a committee willing to serve today and come this Friday afternoon here. Okay. Before I start, I would like to go over some rules from purchasing side. Okay. Each of committee members, they already have evaluated each proposal independently. They all have signed the declaration, which is there's no conflict of interest, there's no lobbying, no discussion outside this meeting, there's no gifting, and each committee will base on the proposal. And evaluation criteria will be based on the requirement and criteria stated in this RFQ. And I need a committee member, please avoid generalization when you discuss later. And avoid condescending phrases. Do not indicate your choice until all discussion is heard. There's no lobbying condition is in effect from the day we publish this proposal until the day the contract is signed. Just want that everyone know, no contact by the proposer or anyone represent the proposer with the CIA board, mayor, city commissioner, officer, city, or any CRA employee. Anything called purchasing. The rule will grant any proposal didn't follow the rule will be grounded for disqualification. And today we're going to do the short list. There's no limit on how many members of firm will be on short list today. And whoever on the short list, we will come back probably next Friday. If all the committee can meet the day, we will do a presentation on all those firms on the short list. And then after the presentation, committee member will narrow down to 2 to 3 firms, and those firms will do the presentation in front of the city commissioner, and then commissioner will make a recommendation to the mayor. So go ahead, Elliot, give us a background for this RFQ.
Background?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, I'll do a little thing impromptu. Didn't know I was going to speak. Good morning. My name is Elliot Cohen. I'm the communications director for the city. The background as to why we're here is the city has decided to look at the possibilities of outsourcing the operation of our community redevelopment agency. Up until this point, it has been staffed by city employees. The city has decided to look at the possibility of outsourcing the staffing of that department to an outside company. We issued the RFQ. The six companies responded, and submitted proposals. The purpose of today is the committee will be evaluating those proposals and deciding which ones of those six would come back for a presentation before the board. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
All right. Those are the proposals for today's evaluation. So we're going to start with the committee to discuss each proposal. We're going to go by alphabetical order. So we're going to start with Steve. Can we, with CH2M Hill. So we're going to do all the discussion, and once all the discussion finishes, I will hand out a short list, and then we will do the short list. Okay? So, Stephen, you want to start with CH2M? You want to talk about CH2M? Yeah. Can you talk about, yes. Mm-hmm.
No, not at this time.
Oh, you don't want it this time? Okay. So how about I start with DeWitt? Would you like to discuss CH2M first?
I mean, basically, I really don't have much comment until I can get an idea.
Oh, you probably have to get close to the
Can you
microphone.
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
No, I don't have much of a comment right now with regards to this.
Okay. Russell, please.
This company would have more background than the proposal would indicate because it acquired the engineering firm of G & Jensen, so there is a great deal of local history with this company, and it appears that qualifications are there.
Okay. Keith?
Good. Are we going to have a presentation by CH2M Hill?
Not today.
No? Okay.
Not today. Today, just short listing. So you guys just discuss, and then in the end of the meeting, we just shortlist whoever. There's no number of how many firms will present. So it's if only one committee think that there's need for them to present, then yes, they will come next week. But don't announce your decision until the end when I pass out the sheets. Thank you. Okay, Jeff.
I'm going to preface this. Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to preface this a little bit on, as we went through this process, I think the interesting thing as we look at all the companies is, they all have a different take on what they bring to the table and their expertise. And I think the key thing that I'm going to be looking for is the ability to manage the CRA and the process involved, and whether they have the relationships and the ability to kind of help us and tie everything together. So specifically related to CH2M Hill, they're a much larger firm than some of the other firms that are there. I was very interested in the fact that they've actually, in some cases, run whole cities. They basically outsourced their entire city operations to CH2M Hill. So, I think that's a plus. Kind of on the negative side, I didn't see as much in the detailed CRA experience as some of the other firms, but I am interested to see kind of getting a better take from them on some of that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
My initial impression from the just reading the proposal is similar to Jeffrey, that obviously they're the biggest, most experienced, I guess, company, but I didn't get the impression from the proposal that they had a lot of CRA type experience. They seem to be more like a construction management and engineering services company primarily, but they obviously have a lot of employees, but I think it's important for the CRA to have a lot of local marketing, the arts and culture, and I didn't get that impression so much from the proposal.
Okay, thank you. And Steve? Oh, okay. Yes, Russell.
Question, excuse me, on all of these, with the exception of one, the compensation is not noted. That's subject to negotiation. And I do know that one of the drivers for this, obtaining such a proposal, was for economic reasons as well. The cost of what it's costing the city versus what it could cost with outsourcing. So only one proposer, or two rather, two of the four had specific costs in there. How should we address that issue
Okay.
of expense to the city?
Mostly for RFQ, for qualification, we're looking for the qualification first, and then purchasing with all the negotiation team will go over to evaluate negotiate the price.
You know, I saw that, but then I see this on the matrix, compensation for services, it was part of, it was to be included in that. I
Right.
just wanted to make sure we get a proper.
So maybe we
perspective.
can, if you have requests next week, if they're on short list, we can ask them to provide that documents. Will that work for you?
That works for me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, typically in an RFQ process, you qualify the firm, you rank them at the end. The top ranked firm you negotiate with first. If it doesn't meet what you're looking for economically, then you are able to go on to the next firm. But I agree, it should be helpful to at least understand how they're going to price and what their thinking is with related to that, so.
Does that put anybody, because we had 2 firms that listed their compensation. And does that put them at a disadvantage now? Or should we just disregard if they do make the short list, disregard the fact they put in compensation numbers, or?
I would today just focus on the
I
qualification.
agree with you, them, but
Right,
2 firms
okay.
did put,
So a committee, please discard the pricing now. Just focus on the qualification. So when we bring them back, I will make sure everyone provide the same information for the presentation. All right?
Yeah, based on what I heard, I think what our chore today is are there any firms that we can just tell from the presentation that they've done that they're not going to meet what we were looking for, and we don't need to have them come in and present? Anybody that I think that, you know, that you'd like to hear further from, or that some of the questions may not even be answered in the presentation, you know, at least from my standpoint, I'd like to at least hear from them in the next round, so.
Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, okay. Stephen here, he's our advisor. Maybe if he can give us some advice. If committee have any question, please just go ahead, refer to Steve, and then Steve can help us.
Oh, I have a question, if I could ask.
Sure.
Steve, you know, this is a process that we're going through. Can you kind of, I mean, with your expertise, tell us, you know, how this has worked in other agencies relative to hiring people in-house, and just kind of your general perspective on it?
Sure. My CRA actually had a contract administrator for under a 5-year contract back in the early 90s, and it worked reasonably well, and was fairly economical. I mean, we had resources well in excess of what the city of Jacksonville Beach has. It's I'm also the planning and development director, so I have 2 jobs, and my CRA job pays $3 an hour. But it's you know, I think in sort of in current terms, this is sort of a pioneering kind of thing. To basically hand over the entire operation to a private entity, and so we're, you know, this group here, and ultimately the commissioners who I assume sit as the CRA board have got a monumental decision to make. A couple of things that I looked for and didn't see in the proposals were how the city intends to oversee this agreement. In my opinion, you almost have to have somebody who's as qualified as the person that's assigned to be the director to be the person who oversees it. They've got to understand what CRAs do and how CRAs are funded, and what the reporting requirements are for CRAs and things of that nature. And the second thing is that I think is extremely important for a properly functioning CRA is that they have good legal counsel available to them, and so I guess maybe it's because I'm a city guy, I'm kind of looking at this from the city's perspective, and those are some things that you know, really the firms weren't asked to respond to, so they didn't, but those are couple of important things. You know, when the Redevelopment Association goes around and does its training, about every third thing we say is, "I'm not a lawyer." And if you have a legal question, you need to ask your lawyer. If you ask me a legal question, I give you an answer, then it's nothing more than an opinion. It's not legal advice. So it's from a city perspective, those are some things that I don't think that you're going to escape having to put some resources to and spend some money on. So you know, I don't think you can look to this to be a complete break, that your CRA is going to be functioning over here and the city's going to be functioning over there. I read the proposals, came down early yesterday. I had them, they were FedExed to me, and I had them on a DVD, so I had to get on Earth before I could spend some time with them, and quite frankly, they've all got something to offer. They're all you know, as we said going around the table, CH2M Hill is a huge company and has all kinds of resources they could bring to bear on it, and other firms are bringing in seasoned people to sit in the CRA director's chair on a day-to-day basis, which is important, and that's a good thing too. So, anyway, my mother always told me that I should not speak until I'm spoken to. So if you all have any specific questions that I can answer, I've been CRA administrator in Jacksonville Beach twice, from 85 through 87. I put together their plans for the 2 districts that we have, and then for 5 years after that, they hired a contract administrator who was much stronger in implementation, had developer contacts, and could bring people to the table to negotiate development agreements. And it was at a time when it was difficult to get financing for large-scale projects, and so the rubber never really hit the road, and when his contract expired, the city handed it back to me and gave me a $3 an hour salary supplement. Here I am. I've been now the CRA administrator for 20 years, and so I know a little bit about it.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Russell? Yes.
I go back to this, let me just call it the CH proposal rather than their long name. Litigation. I felt that on page 65 was a non-response. This is a big company. It said that no material aspect on their financial statements, but it didn't say they don't have any litigation. They probably do, a company this size. But have they had litigation that would reflect on how they could operate? It doesn't say. This is a non-response as far as I'm concerned on the litigation for this in this proposal. Maybe I'm reading it differently from others, but I'd like to have that addressed.
Okay. I had to go back to the RFP.
Can I ask Steve one more question real
Sure.
quick? If you had to pick, you know, given if we go down this path and we go with a firm that's on this list, in your mind, what is the most important, what is the one thing that we should have? What's the top item that we should look for in a company?
I think that I think it would be that the people that are going to be committed to run West Palm's CRA have had to have their boots on the ground for a long time. That the work that's being done and needs to be done, and what I think y'all hope will be done in the future is too important to have somebody come in and have them crawling up a learning curve of some kind or another. So I would really look, you know, almost past the names on the list and look at the people that they're going to bring to bear to the task at hand.
Okay. Yes.
Stephen, when you say boots on the ground, do you mean local experience, or do you mean they've done CRA-type activities before?
I think CRA experience in Florida is sufficient. Certainly, I know the people on the team that have had their boots on the ground closest to the ground. because of associations through the Redevelopment Association, but they don't know any more about Florida redevelopment and the laws and requirements governing redevelopment in the state of Florida than some of the other folks that have been presented in these responses.
So one more question, Stephen. The thing that always interests me is your thoughts on having someone that represents the city of West Palm Beach CRA, but also represents other, CRAs. Do you think that the competition is an issue at all? Like as opposed to having it in-house?
That's a difficult question, and essentially you've had that situation, as I understand it, and you'll have to judge for yourself whether or not that's been a problem or if that's lended itself to being effective. I was surprised in reading some of these that there are folks who have a job who are being proposed for this job. I guess maybe I'm thinking like a city guy, and I wonder how that reflects on where they are now.
I guess maybe I ask it a different way. Do you think that CRAs are in competition with each other? Like
I don't think so. Not in my experience. Their cities are. But a CRA is essentially a resource. I mean, it's, if they're not working as a team with the leadership of their community, then they're probably not going to be effective at all. And so, I think cities might compete with each other for new development. Certainly, up in our area, I got the Trader Joe's in Jacksonville Beach. And all I had to do is smile and say, what can we do to help you? So, and I'm sure the other communities in Northeast Florida, wish that they were getting it. So it's just, so there is that sort of thing, but I don't think it's a at your throat kind of a thing where, where there are really winners and losers. I think the problems are different and the approach to solving them needs to be different. So I wouldn't think that it's certainly not a highly competitive kind of thing, and I think that the people who do redevelopment, I've always, as I've risen through the ranks of the FRA, my comment's always been that it's some of the best, brightest, most committed public servants in the state of Florida are involved in CRAs and in the redevelopment work, and I think they're all professionals, and I think that they can. Even if they're working for somebody else, I think that they can balance that out and perform their jobs effectively.
Thank you. All right, Russell?
At what point do we say, is it going to be at the end of this meeting that we're going to rank them and then say they're on the short list?
We're going to do a short list today.
At the end of the meeting?
Yes.
And so we say nothing about any
Right.
proposal until we get to that point? Okay.
Right.
I want to make sure that was clear. I thought that's what you said.
So I guess we finished CH2 and we're going to go to the next firm, Global Business Development Center. So start with Duet, please.
Well, now that you guys have cleared up that this is mainly a qualifications item, makes it a lot easier. I would just say that, from a qualification standpoint, I think they do meet the requirements that we need according to the documents we have here. They do have some local experience. However, it's a matter of how detailed or involved they've been in CRA-type products. That's in
You probably go to close.
compared to the others.
Okay. So you don't see enough detail on the proposal?
Correct.
Okay. Russell, please.
I read this one, read all of them, obviously, carefully. I didn't feel that this proposer had a great deal of redevelopment experience. Had marketing experience, has had some CRA experience, but I can tell you our CRA in both areas of the city need and are going to continue to need redevelopment. So I felt that this proposal lacked in that. I was also somewhat questioning the organization structure that is in Section C, the second sheet, dealing with the, what looks to be co-executive directors. I mean, who's really going to run it, so to speak? And I would have questions on how the operation would take place were this proposer appointed, contracted.
Thank you. Keith, please.
No questions this time.
No, okay. Jeff?
I kind of agree with Russell. It's an interesting proposal. When I stack it against the other ones, it doesn't quite have the level of experience, but at the same time, there'd be some questions that I'd want to ask. I'd want to get into some more detail on how they would structure it.
Structure, okay.
That'll be a discussion at the end, I'm sure.
Okay, thank you. And William?
My impression is that they are less qualified than the other proposals. I think there was a lot of talk in the proposal about business coaching and business planning and seminars and leaders and motivational speaker. I think they spent a lot of time talking about things that aren't necessarily CRA related, so I thought that was
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone want to talk about more on global business? No? Okay. Let's move to Kennedy Wilson. Hi. All right, Dewey, I'm going to start with you first.
I would say with this group, they seem to have some of the CRA experience. However, I believe that they're more on a global scale, not very local. I don't feel they're a very local type company, which is what we would probably need to help with, like we mentioned earlier, Florida-based, understanding exactly what's going on, and more of a long-term understanding of the objectives of the CRAs and what we need here in Florida.
Russell?
I share that opinion as well. I felt, however, that they have significant redevelopment project experience. I mean, it's a wow list. To look at what they've done, it's all mostly in the West Coast, and I don't blame them for wanting getting out of California, but that's another subject. But they've done, in my view, primarily private work. I didn't see a lot of direct government work. They did do some projects for cities that could be subject to discussion, but it's very significant. But again, it's an out-of-state company.
All right, thank you. Keith?
Good.
Okay.
I agree with the other comments. As I look at this, they have a lot of private experience. That's a world of difference from trying to run a CRA. They don't have any local. I agree with what Stephen said earlier, that one of the things that I'm looking for is somebody that's got a lot of Florida experience and has relationships. Part of this responsibility is relationship building. It's my feeling they would have a long learning curve unless they were to partner with somebody locally, and it wasn't in their proposal. So.
All right, thank you, Jeff. And William?
I agree with the other comments. My notes from the proposal were that the company came across to me as mostly real estate management and financing in a big company, but not, and I'd written no local knowledge in my notes. So I kind of had the same impression.
Okay. Stephen, do you have any view compared to people who had no local experience?
Yeah, this is quite a company, and if my CRA had a project and I was trying to get it done, these would be the people I would call.
That's the impression I got, is I would call them for a specific project as opposed to having them run the show the whole day.
All right, thank you. So anyone else for Kennedy Wilson? No? Let's move to the next firm.
Second here, CS.
RMA.
R.
Okay. Duet. Yes.
Well, in reading the various proposals that we do have, of course, from a qualification standpoint, they definitely seem to have a vast amount of it. And to me, it just seems that they've had a little bit more hands-on within the community, locally and in Florida. So from a qualification standpoint, they're definitely one of the stronger a strong part of the groups that we have in front of us.
All right. Thank you. Russell?
I share those remarks. I think this company, and obviously one of the principals, has worked closely with the city, has been very active on the CRA with the advisory board, very responsive as well. But what I also appreciate, we're not relying on just one principal. We're getting a lot of talent. I noticed in particular the other individuals that also have local or Florida CRA experience, John Ward in the city of Fort Pierce, with which I'm familiar in the redevelopment projects that were done there. This particular company would fulfill that, what do we call them, feet on the ground or?
Boots on the ground?
Boots on the ground. So definitely qualified to lead the CRA.
Thank you, Russell. Keith?
I agree with, both those comments.
Okay, Jeff?
One of the things that we were trying to do when we set up this process was, being able to draw resources from a firm, across a broad spectrum, things that we may not have in-house. And I think the proposal from RMA kind of illustrates part of that, which is they do have a broad experience. They have a lot of resources to draw on. So, yeah, clearly I think they would be qualified.
Okay, thank you. William?
I agree with everything that's been said. I think this proposal was well done. Qualifications are clear. I had one question. Kim, who is the principal here, was also involved in the CRA before. What was her, I don't know if you can answer, I'm just curious about what exactly she did before and how she was involved in the CRA.
I probably have let Jeff answer that because Jeff was on the board.
Yeah, I mean, basically, Kim's responsibility, she was an employee, but a part-time employee of the city, so she worked a certain number of hours for the city, and as part of her agreement, and if I speak out of turn, I'm sorry, I'm wrong, was that she was allowed to do these other assignments with her husband.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Stephen, do you have anything you want to add on?
No, as I mentioned, I know most everybody who was listed in the proposal. I thought the proposal was really well done. I mean, it was very easy to go through and figure out what they know and what they intended to do and who was going to do it, and there's a wealth of experience there. But I'm also aware that there's been a lot of media coverage about this deal, and so I'm not going to say a whole lot more.
All right, understand. All right, thank you. Let's move to Special District Service. All right, DeWitt, please.
To kind of keep it short and sweet, goes back to, I guess, the key items that we've been looking for in regards to the specific tools that will be needed. I think that, for one aspect of what would need to be done with the CRA, these guys would be great for that. But for the overall responsibility matrix, there'd be a lot of making up they would need to do based on just the qualifications that I see here.
Okay, thank you. Russell?
I felt that the principals involved in this are certainly familiar with government, municipal government, certainly highly qualified individuals. Have an individual, Clark Bennett, that's familiar with municipal bond issuance and those sorts of things. But I didn't see a lot of extensive CRA experience and redevelopment experience in this particular proposal.
Okay, thank you. Keith? Jeff?
One of the things that, as we go through this process, that I'm cognizant of is that ultimately the role of this committee is to shortlist maybe 2 or 3 firms for the commission to look at. One of the feedbacks that I've heard in the community is divided loyalties, and some firms may have more than one CRA, and how do they, so maybe as I look at this company in particular, clearly they have experience running a CRA. The people involved clearly have done that. So it's almost like, that would be an alternative model to look at as one that, kind of centers on West Palm Beach on an outsourcing basis. So then my questions, to this firm would be, all right, do you have the ability to pull in, like I said in the last presentation, the resources that we need? If we need a specific project, are you going to have the ability to do that? And so those are some of the questions I'd probably want to ask going forward. trying to be cognizant of the fact that we're going to put 2 or 3 firms in front of the commission.
Yes, that's correct.
So, it's almost like we're giving them a couple of different models to look at when we do this based on the way the proposals came out, so.
Okay, thank you. William?
I agree with Duette's comments. My impression was that they seemed like more of an administrative consultant as opposed to the kind of company that would come in and actually run the whole thing. Consult on specific items maybe, but not. Also, they've got a lot of stuff going on and not a huge amount of employees.
Okay. Thank you. Stephen, do you have any input?
Yeah, I think my only comment would be that the depth of their experience is in special districts other than CRAs, and they're vastly different. Community development districts are usually single-purpose, put together as a financing mechanism for infrastructure improvements, usually private development, fire service districts, mosquito control districts, things of that nature. The business of a CRA is much different than the business that some of these other special districts. And one of the key things is knowing how to reach out and find potential developers project, and you need to put it together with a private entity. I'm not so sure they have that kind of experience.
Thank you, Stephen. So let's move to the last one, the urban group. Okay. DeWitt, let's start with you.
I would say here's another group where if you look at qualifications and, local history and also real life done deals, this group also has a pretty strong package that they've put here in front of me. One of the items I would say is, looking at it, they've been very good at pointing out key projects that they've worked on individually, but it's kind of getting a better grasp of how they would look at the whole picture, not just on specific items within specific districts, but the overall picture of the CRA.
Good, thank you. Russell?
In reviewing this particular proposal, I felt there was a lot of focus of this particular company on housing, more so than on commercial redevelopment and our CRAs. And I don't know what the other reviewers have said, but I just felt there was more housing involved than we're going to need in our CRA here.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Jeff?
And from my standpoint, it's kind of like the comment I made last time. This is also another slightly different model where they have some experience in housing. They have some strong people that they would bring to the table. It's kind of the questions I would ask of, can they bring the right support staff? Can they get the right cross-section, help us more on the economic development side? So, again, it's another something for us to look at.
Great, thank you. William?
I agree with Russell. The main note that I took in looking at this one was it seems like they specialize in housing. I didn't see a lot of commercial and the other things that seemed to be their specialty was just the housing development. Thank you.
Stephen, do you want to put any notes on?
Yeah, it might be a comment more about me than it is about them. I had trouble getting past the fact they misspelled redevelopment in the header of which appears on every page. I think the members of the committee have hit the nail on the head. The other experience I think is very useful, and there's been I've done some projects where I wished I would have had some help with, and that's doing land assembly without the benefit of eminent domain. I've done actually both, and eminent domain is much more expensive, but it's a lot easier too. So, but I think they have a niche, and it would be in in land assembly and in housing projects, and they may not have the breadth of experience to actually manage a complete CRA program.
Thank you. Is committee want to have more discussion, or you guys know who you want to put on a short list for the presentation? Okay, all right, let me pass on the notes.
we're going to write these down? Is that what we're going to do? I know, but are we going to write them, or are we going to just say them? We just give it, mark it with the next, right?
Yes.
Not voting, right?
Oh, is it their name?
You have your name. William,
Got your
here's
name on yours?
William, that's yours.
Jeffrey Green over here.
Oh, this is the master list, okay. All right.
Oh, did I give you guys a master list?
Yeah, you gave us the master list, too. I'm sorry, we're out of time. Thank you for coming.
Are we keeping you awake?
Can we have a little discussion, I guess?
Sure.
I mean, I looked at all the proposals, read them, and I thought there was a lot of really interesting aspects of each. I always find that I think it's a little easier to
Look
understand
at this larger. How I do that?
what we have here in front of us when we get to talk to the applicant. And so I was getting ready to throw 6 X's across here. I agree with a lot of the comments that were said. I think some looked a little stronger. I think some of the things that some people thought were less strong, which is more private experience, those were some of the things that I thought were most interesting. Because I think that if as Stephen said, you got to get a deal done, and like have someone that does deals for a living in the private world. Sometimes that's a little different, aspect of looking at these things. So I find it hard to. I did read them. It was kind of painful, but I read like every one of them, and I just think it'd be nice to hear from all of them. That's just my thoughts. Now, I know that's a lot, and I understand we're trying to get a short list. So, but that was my thought.
Thank you.
To discuss.
Very confused at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, all you have to do, the committee member, just mark the X on the firm that you would like to see the presentation. There's no limit on the number of firms that you would like to select.
Just do
And
it.
then once you finish selection, just sign. I do have one question for committee. You guys want to do anonymous, or you want me show your name and what you mark?
You can show mine, I don't care.
Yeah.
You can show mine.
It's
It's a
only
public
if
document, so
we're full
it doesn't matter
disclosure.
anyway.
I already
guys
told
will-
you. I already
okay.
told you who I was
Full
supposed to.
disclosure.
Yeah, I don't think it's an option.
It is either. Josephine, have we said how long we're going to have them do presentations for?
Normally, I would say 45 minutes. So,
Talking about 6 hours if everybody comes.
oh, okay. All right, let me mark on here, and you guys all can see the screen here.
Oh, that's why I wanted to have a discussion.
Do I need to announce? So the,
Let's see if I can turn the projector.
oh, okay.
I understand.
Okay, as I mentioned earlier on the rule, as long as one committee member mark X on their sheet, and that firm will have to show up. So it look like every firm will show up next Friday. Will that workable for everybody? And
Friday work for you, Brittany? Next Friday? I have to be here.
Okay.
Well,
And
it'll
again,
probably
that's
be,
why- I mean,
if we
that's
do
what-
45 minutes, it'll be probably 6 hours, so I would block the whole day.
I mean, do you think 30 minutes will be enough time for them to do
Probably
the
not.
print? Yeah, I don't think we'll.
We'll have questions, I'm sure. Maybe
I
like
don't
a
think it's
20-minute.
fair for all 6 to show up.
They can't watch each other's presentations. Oh,
Right, they won't show,
Do
it
we-
will be do one at a time.
Knowing, number one, you put 6 models up before the city commission isn't going to work.
no.
No.
This is what we're
Next-
doing.
Yeah,
We are going to meet, just us are going to meet and go through those. And at the next meeting, after the presentations, we have to narrow it to 2 or 3.
yeah, let me go back to that slide earlier I showed you.
They won't see 6 presentations. Commission will not.
That I understood. I'm talking about for us to have these 6 proposers, and you can see how weighted it was. Is it fair?
So Russell, that's why.
Should we reconsider?
Sure, and I'm happy to reconsider. That's why I said, can we have some discussion about it? Because I knew where I was thinking, and I'd rather have discussion amongst the committee here. And then I think that we can debate whether we need to eliminate a couple of the X's that I put on the list.
Josephine, do we have the ability to do that if we want to at this point?
If all the committee agree, want to revote it, I will allow that.
So can you put the votes back up so we can
Okay.
see that?
Let's take the 2 that I put on that nobody else did, right?
No, on the screen. Just put it on the screen. So we can see who voted for what, so we can talk about it. All right, so we have 3 votes for at least 4 of the firms. Are we okay with, we want to talk about, we just want to talk about the 2 that only have 2?
Correct.
Okay.
Right, well,
You were one of the ones that voted for one of the 2.
I voted for everyone.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so the first one is, I can't see what that is. What's the first one?
Let me get back.
That would be
Tell us what it is, and we can look at the,
Kennedy Wilson and
yeah.
the other one. is-
So, okay, well, no, okay, global, okay. Well, let's do Kennedy Wilson first, if that's all right. So Kennedy Wilson, to me, was the exact comments that people made, which is a big, huge development firm, tons of experience. I think Stephen might have even made a comment to, if you wanted to get a deal done, like you'd call these guys. I think the key to the success of the CRA is getting deals done. So I thought it'd be really interesting to see a fresh perspective on managing a CRA. Now, the bad news is they seem to work primarily on the west coast of the U.S.
Right. I
So-
viewed that as a
so-
negative. The
right.
fact that they don't have any Florida experience. I'm trying to imagine a situation where we pick them and they can come in and be up to speed and
So how did they, I don't remember exactly how they
I'd like to-
proposed to be, have a local boots on the ground.
I'm not sure it was really in there.
it
but-
wasn't. I mean, they basically left it broad, so.
Yeah. The thing that I would mention, I've been on the CRA board for the city longer than I've ever held a job, 20 years. CRA advisory board, and I've worked with several directors, and I can tell you, it isn't monumental leaps that the CRA makes. It is plodding along and doing things steadily. It just takes time, and you need patience and the ability to do it little things at a time. You know, we've done some big things, but it's not going to take a company of this type that's going to do monumental leaps. We don't need that. Steady work, background work, building blocks, foundation.
Stephen, do you think?
Well, Keith, one comment I would make with regard to your thought about them having the ability to do the deal. If you hire them to be your CRA administrator, it's going to take them out of the game. So you would have to know that they know people that they could reach out to that could do that, as opposed to if they're your administrator, then they can't be your developer.
Just taking them out of their experience, which is developing.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm getting at is in order to make a deal happen, you have to know what it takes to make the deal. And so I think that it'd be really some good insight that someone that knows what it takes. So when they go and ask someone, say, well, you have to put up X amount of money, and then they know right away, we're not even going to ask that question, guys. It's never, the deal's never going to happen if you ask that. So that was, I guess, the way I looked at it.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I mean, I think the West Coast experience is a pretty big negative. I mean, I think it was interesting to hear from Stephen, who we're taking as an expert here, that boots on the ground was almost the first thing that you said was your number one criteria.
Well, and to kind of add a little bit to that, developers are cut from a different cloth. And when you're dealing with what I call governmental, and it's going to be a lot of public-private, not to say that they don't have that experience, but it's almost like you're going to take a private guy to try to do public, and it takes a lot of tedious time and monotony to kind of get into that role. They always say developers are ADD to a certain degree. Just, keep moving. When I was looking at the different proposals here, if you notice, like I said, based on their qualifications and what they have in their tool chest to make it happen, if I was to, yes, they're strong deal makers that can make it happen, but I think that the groups that we have outside of that with boots on the ground could develop that by virtue of who they have on their team and who they can bring to the table. And it's going to take a lot of creativity too. I don't think any of the other groups here don't have that positive, but these guys are heavily development and they're not from Florida. Not that it's a bad thing, don't get me wrong, but Florida is a different animal. I've worked in different states and municipalities, and Florida is just a whole different animal.
And plus you have sunshine rules. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very, very tough to come in and manage that right off the bat if you don't have any experience doing it.
Again, the private part of it is what excites me about, and I didn't see, I think they single-handedly had more private experience in understanding deals than anybody else. And I'm not sure if many of the other proposals had any private experience. Some of the proposals didn't. Now, but they know how to run CRAs. They have really good experience, really good track records.
And I agree with you there, but from what I've seen in some of them, and I don't want to mention the different proposals by name, but you'll see where they have been able to get certain deals done, which would not have happened without a private involvement. So they, in some right, they do have it. They probably never weren't strong enough in pushing it, putting it out there in their proposal. But for me, looking at it, it had to have some private work in there.
And I think that, now having the dialogue, that's why I asked that at the beginning, can we talk about it? I think that helps me understand a little bit more of everybody else's thoughts. I think that the reality here is having 6 of these people come into the shortlist, maybe, so I'm sure I can back off my X on Kennedy Wilson relative, probably mostly because of the Californian, like, zero experience in Southeast Florida. And so maybe someone else that had an X on him. Okay, no, that was just me.
Is any
Just
committee,
about that one. What did you like about that one?
is any committee want to reconsider?
I'll reconsider on
Okay.
Kennedy Wilson.
Anyone else?
Right.
No.
It's the only one that
He's
marked
the only
there.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the other one, Global? Which one's that? I guess I thought they had a decent proposal and thought I'd hear from them. I guess I'd like to hear what we felt that it was missing, amongst, I think I'm the only one that checked it. So if we could find out where we felt that it was short.
One of the comments I made was that they had little redevelopment experience. Community redevelopment agency, we have a lot of redevelopment work done, particularly in the business community here in West Palm. And while they had good marketing credentials, it was also mentioned by one of the other reviewers about the seminars and the contacts that they have, it's the redevelopment experience that appears to be lacking in this particular proposal. They have some CRA experience, but the redevelopment is missing, and that's why I didn't favor putting them on the short list.
Which one we're talking about?
TBDC.
GBC.
Global.
Oh, global, okay.
Yeah, I was.
I'm sorry. Another thing I noticed on Global that I put in my notes was that they had a really long study period before anything really
Correct.
happened. And
It's
that
almost a
was
one-year.
problem.
They clearly have pieces that they can do. It just, to me, it wasn't like the overall, if I look at all the proposals side by side, the other ones have a much better experience managing the whole process, and that's kind of why I didn't include them on my list. That's the only other one I didn't include on my list.
Steven, do you have any other last thoughts? I was just again,
Yeah, it looked like most of their background was working with CRAs rather than doing CRA work. They're They were managing
The microphone.
projects and working on
Okay.
little pieces of what the CRA's objective, primarily in Delray. And
Stephen, please get close to the microphone so we
I
can all
know
hear.
he came in and hollered at me a little while ago.
Probably just hold it.
What I was just saying is that in reviewing their proposal, it seemed like most of their work was for a CRA. It was managing a project or something of that nature, as opposed to the full gamut of CRA work.
Thank you. So Keith, are you comfortable with?
Sure, I'll reconsider that
Okay.
proposal as well. Yep.
So you need any more input or any more
No,
discussion?
I mean, I think, like I say, the discussion here helps me understand
Okay, that's
some of the
good.
things. It's hard to, digest all of this.
Right.
By
Understandable.
myself, so some of the insight that
Right.
everybody shared, I think, has been really helpful.
As long as all the committee feel comfortable and have confidence what you select, that's what purchasing here for.
So we're going to leave then 4 firms to have presentations then?
I'm going to get a sheet. I'm going to go based on the paper.
Sure.
I was thinking we were going to hear presentations today, too.
Pardon?
I was thinking that we would be hearing
That's what I thought we were-
presentations
That's why,
today.
I thought it was a quick short list process.
And now I'm wondering if I'll be coming back next Friday.
Sounds like you will. Welcome.
If you can. That would be good.
And we want you.
See what my wife's plans are for me.
Yeah, I
You don't want
unfortunately,
to come down and stay in West Palm Beach all the time? Come on.
I've
Okay.
never done this before, so.
I'm
So
glad,
the-
I'm glad you all care how we do things up north.
The shortlist firm will be CH2M Hill Engineers, and then RMA Special District Service, the Urban Group. So those 4 firms will present next Friday. And the committee can send me the email, any question you guys like to ask, then we can put out agenda, how each proposal should do the presentation.
Can we talk about that now? Maybe just
Yeah,
kind
if
of
you guys
brainstorm?
want to
I mean,
do
is
it,
that- I think this is the venue to be able to talk as a group. Stephen, I think you'd mentioned, compensation was the one, I think, that was brought up early. It'd be really nice to know what this is going to cost the city.
Okay?
Well, the problem with that, just so you know, is, we haven't, how they're going to deal with staff and all that is going to be something that we'll have to discuss. So they may not be able to be in a position to say, will cost exactly this dollar amount.
No,
So-
but I mean, they have to put something more than we'll talk about it in the future. I think one of the proposals, or 2 of them, actually had, they had more than hourly rates, but they took some attempt at it. The director will have a position, it'll be this annual salary, and I think some of that would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and
And
then
a
a
lot of the
menu of,
proposals had enough of an outline of what they were going to do, where if you did attach at least a range of numbers to it, you could get a kind of a ballpark.
Jeff, do we know what the budget has been historically for this?
It is, but the question's going to be, again, it's how you structure it. So if, for example, we didn't say that you actually had to take all the employees and make them non-salary. So, how that comes in will depend on how much that costs one way or the other. So I don't want us to tie us down too much on cost at this point until we have an idea of what we want process-wise.
I think what William said, you put a list of services and people assigned to the service, and then you say, this is the range of fees for that service if you elect to take it. And we'd at least know in the future when we're saying, all right, we have decided that you're going to keep all the current staff, and we know what their salaries are, and, does that work with you? I mean, I think it would just be a good starting.
No, that's fine. And I'll give you another example. One of the things that may come out of this is, for the same dollars that we're spending now, maybe we get additional services. And so it's not necessarily that we save money as much as that we get more expertise and more services for the dollars that we spend.
So, Steve, for next Friday, though, meeting, I'd like to have more of a explicit response from CH on their litigation. Nothing wrong with litigating. I get litigated all the time, but,
Right.
we need to say so.
Okay. We will put that on there, the communication with them.
Stephen, did you have some other, I know you had mentioned a couple things that were kind of your top of your list that.
Yeah, I'll just mention them again. This is you know, I guess it's not a divorce. In fact, it's probably a marriage. And you're going to want to know, I think, especially if when it comes time for the city commission to make a choice, how they would envision their relationship with the city, and how they think that they could interface and allow the oversight that I think is going to be necessary on the part of the city. I mean, I don't guess anybody goes to jail for missing a report deadline to the state or something like that, but it's not going to be your firm that's going to be held to task for that. It'll be the city. And so the city should know, I think, how they think it should be structured in terms of their, the relationship with the city. It could be.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, I will stay as the CRA treasurer, so I'm still going to have.
It could be Mr. Green's office that.
Believe me, I'm not going to go to jail.
And then the other thing is that they, I think that they're going to have access to legal counsel, and if the city of West Palm wants to give them that, that's fine, because that's probably the way it works now. I mean, cities of this size have their own law firm basically on staff, and there's probably somebody in there who's very knowledgeable on Chapter 163, Part 3, and knows how to do that. But those might be a couple of things that I'd like to see or hear more about.
For me, one of the things I was looking at is on the work plan is probably getting a better idea from each of the respondents in regards to, I guess, how soon they can be effective in really getting things done. How quick can you actually get some turnaround into having things happening in the CRA?
Expectations of what we could look for.
Is it a year? Like you said, we had one group that we knew that, by the time they kind of got their arms around everything, it was a year down the road. Well, how soon?
Can't wait that long.
Yeah.
It's good.
I agree. Work plan to me is important, and there's, again, like I said earlier, there seems to be some different models based, because the firms are a little bit different on how they approach it, and so I want to kind of have discussions about one versus the other, and I'm going to ask questions in those areas as we get along. So
I noticed in the RFP itself that there was some language in there with regard to participation of the selected firm with certain kinds of activities, primarily economic development, outside of the CRAs, and that's going to take a different funding.
yeah, I think what we were attempting to do there is, for example, we have incentive programs that are specific to the CRA that we want to roll out citywide, and it didn't make sense for us to have two different administrative tracking of that type of item. So it was along those lines, and basically working with the city's economic development director and not having parallel paths. I think that's what that really meant.
So it's a collaboration type
Collaboration,
thing, yeah.
right.
And you could manage it if you wanted them to do something for you, that you could handle it through some sort of task.
We actually have that set
task
up now.
order of some sort or another.
We have an interlocal that lets us pass services back and forth between the CRA and the city. But to that end, I think the other thing that we were trying to do is avoid having two economic development messages, even though this entity will be responsible for the economic development in the CRA, it should mesh with the overall city economic development.
Yeah, I just, there's more of a caution than anything. Southeast Florida is somewhat notorious for having discussions, or disputes disguised as discussions with their counties.
Yes.
Okay, so we all ready? Yeah. We try to coordinate, because whoever for next presentation, the committee going to do the short list. Will narrow it down to 2 to 3 firms, and those firms will present in front of the commissioner in the workshop. The workshop there will be on the 4th and 18th. So try to make it easy for everyone. If we can make the presentation on the Friday, will be the November 1st.
No, next Friday is the 25th.
No, we're going to skip that, because the workshop will be happen on November 4th.
We're not going to meet next Friday?
Right.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
When are we going to meet?
The 2 weeks from now will be November 1st.
I definitely won't be able to make that. That's the Florida Redevelopment Association annual conference in Tampa, and I will be giving up my throne.
Okay, so is that okay with Elliot? Sorry.
Why is it we couldn't do next Friday? I'm just curious.
Yeah. Hi, gentlemen. All we're trying to do is if we had some out-of-town presenters, what we were trying to do is schedule it so if they came in and presented to you on a Friday, it would be a Friday right before a Monday commission work session. So in other words, if they come in
can
and
stay
present
in
to the
town?
committee on a Friday, they stay for the weekend, and then they're presenting the following Monday to the commission work session. That was we were trying to make it easier if they were presenters that were from out of town.
Got it.
I don't know how many of the 4, I guess. I don't know how many. Are they all
CH2
local?
Hill- I think CH2 Hill would be out of town.
Okay, so the commission work sessions right now are scheduled for November 4th and November 18th. So we're trying to schedule your presentations the Friday before one of those 2 days, which would either be November 1st or November, I'm losing track.
2 weeks later?
Yeah, 15th. So it's really dictated by your schedules. Obviously, you've got to be here to hear them, but we're trying to make it easier for presenters, so if they are from out of town, they're here on the Friday, they stay the weekend, they present on Monday, and they don't have to come back twice.
First is no good.
First, good for everybody? On our own?
Well, Steve's not a voting member, so
Right. Or
it's up to us if we want to have him.
we can record the presentation and send this DVD to Stephen and then see if we can make some recommendation to you guys. Would that work?
How would
Probably
that
won't
work? We're doing the presentations that day.
Oh, yeah, we'll do short list right away. Won't work.
I guess what time on the first would be, we'll be looking for trying to do this? It'll be the same time, or is it earlier?
I'm sorry?
Will it be the same time on the first, or is it
Would you
earlier?
prefer in the morning or the afternoon?
I'd prefer the morning for
Yeah, morning's
the day,
good.
'cause
Fine
I'm-
for me.
yeah,
Get started early.
I
get it
suggest morning because it's going to be a long
We
meeting
have,
for.
4 presentations? then?
Right.
So at least 4 or 5 hours, so, yeah.
done. Start at 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock? Everybody?
Let's make
Steve, you won't be able to
8:30.
do that.
You want to
8:30
make
November 1?
8:30 is easier, so that way no one rush so early meeting.
You know, actually, that's probably, I mean, Stephen theoretically could come back and meet with the commission after he's seen the presentations. I mean, that's allowable, right? Or not?
Yeah, then he will make a recommendation to the commissioner. That actually is a good way. So we can just send a DVD to you.
We will have shortlisted it, they will present it to the city commission.
We will shortlist, then that meeting's going to be taped, so we can make a DVD, send it to Stephen between the time that we shortlist and before they actually, the commission actually sees those.
Oh, I thought they were presenting to the commission Monday.
No. Oh, that
Yeah,
Monday,
that
that's right.
Monday.
You're
Yeah,
right.
they're going to
Fine.
present on
Oh, yeah, the
Friday, start
FedEx
the
won't
weekend, and
deliver.
present
My
on
fault,
Monday.
you're right.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
Anyone
Stephen's-
driving to
Stephen's
Jacksonville?
given us invaluable insight already.
Yeah, but yeah, I think you're all extremely capable of doing your job.
All right, then we'll mark October, wait, November 1st, right?
November 1st.
8:30. And I will send a letter to each proposer from the short list, and then let you know your schedule and your agenda for the presentation. Okay?
Good.
All right, thank you so much for today's. And
You
see
collecting
you.
these?
Those are public records, but you guys still want to keep it for next meeting? Yes, so
do.
please keep it and bring it back, and I'll collect next week. I mean, 2 weeks from, yeah, 2 weeks from now.
We give you the proposals that we're not going to have to go through. again.
Okay, if you don't want, you can leave on table and I'll collect them in the end.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.